Okay, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, traders and investors around the world. Welcome to this Wednesday, July 12th edition of Pre-Market Prep Plus. Joel Elconin, joined by Gerald Pascarelli, who covers beverages over at Wedbush Securities. We're going to talk about some of the stocks on his radar, someone we talked about not too long ago. Quick recap of the commodities and futures. S&P's getting a lift off the better than expected CPI data, trading near the highs of the session, up 35 and a quarter handles at 45.0875. The buck taking a hit on this, heading back towards the $100 level. We're down 66 cents at 100.74. Bonds getting a little bit of a boost, up 23.30 seconds at 125 and 3.30 seconds. Crude climbing over 75, up 56 cents at 75.39. Gold in the green by 12 bucks at 12.2910. Silver going much more on a percentage basis. That's up 2.36%. That's 54 cents at 23.63. And Bitcoin futures, they're up $190 at 30,945. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to bring in Mr. Pascarelli from Wedbush Securities, covering the beverages sector, and I'm sure covering, the stocks and the individual sectors. You kind of keep an eye on the macro environment and the inflation data here, and good numbers delivered today.
Absolutely. And that's really kind of a continuation of what we've seen, really since the early part of 2023, right? And so when you looked at the narrative in 2022, January, February of this year, there was how much pricing can the consumer withstand given, these outsized and historically high levels of commodity or just of CPI inflation. And obviously, as this continues to moderate, even though it's still above the Fed's target here, double-digit pricing for these companies is not going to happen in perpetuity. And so we think that some of the questions around the health of the consumer likely dissipate as we get into the back half of the year here. So encouraging for sure.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to some stocks. You're covering the beverages stocks, and they haven't actually, they kind of been a little bit out of favor. Maybe I'm looking at like the Pepsi charts. We have rotation always going on in the market. So let's talk about some of the big stocks you cover and where they fall into in this whole rotation cycle.
Yeah, sure. So I think to your point here, it's been more of a risk-on environment over the first half of the year, and when that happens, obviously, there will be a rotation out of staples. When we look and when we establish our ratings and our price targets, we do look at fundamental factors first and foremost. And from what we're seeing in non-alcoholic beverages specifically, we really like the revenue algorithm. We like the fact that these companies are getting outsized levels of pricing that not only drives above algorithm revenue growth, but it helps to offset commodity and input cost inflation, which has been very topical. And so fundamentally, we like the soda companies. We're recommending Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper at this juncture, and we also, our top pick is Celsius. That's part of our best idea. It's added to our Wedbush best ideas list. So that one's been pretty good.
Yeah, that one's been doing good. So tell us, I'm looking at the chart here, a big gap and go of earnings, new all-time high here. I'm not sure what the valuation is on this stock, but tell us what you liked about it, what you continue to like about it, and if you're afraid of heights here at the $150 level.
Yeah, so the stock really, over the course of the past 12 months, has made two moves. The first one was in August when Pepsi announced that it was investing for an equity stake in the business and getting exclusive distribution rights. And then the second was really coming out of 1Q earnings. There had been positive sentiment headed into last quarter's print that they were going to have a notable top line beat. They got it, and then the stock following 1Q earnings has remained strong because as a predominant U.S.-based company, investors and the street tends to look at either Nielsen and or IRI data. as point of sale data. And what we've really seen over the implied upcoming second quarter is that growth has accelerated from 1Q levels. And when you look at street estimates, the broad expectation is that triple digit growth is never going to last forever. There will be moderation for sure. We just have not seen it in the data yet. And I think that that's one of the things that has certainly acted as a catalyst for the share price appreciation here.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to some other stocks here. And we're getting to just cover anything in the coffee beverage area. You bet he does. But let's take a look at the spirits and Constellation Brands here. Had moving up here nicely with the market. Not too far from all-time highs. I think I have to adjust the time frame on this chart. But tell us what you like and what you don't like about Constellation Brands.
Yeah, Constellation Brands, we're recommending, excuse me, we're recommending the stock. We've been recommending it since we initiated coverage in October. It's an interesting one. There had been a concern in the marketplace that there was a fundamental slowdown in its beer business, which is what essentially drives all of the multiple expansion in this stock. And so really following what was a very poor March, not only for Constellation Brands, but for the beer business in general, likely attributable to weather. We've seen a reacceleration in Constellation sales. We've seen a reacceleration, most importantly, in the Modelo brand family. That's their key driver. Their key driver brand there is obviously going to be Modelo Especial, but they've had new innovation. This brand called Modelo Oro just hit the market. And so what we're seeing right now is sequential acceleration from Especial in tandem with this rollout of Modelo Oro. So, to us and, to investors, that signals that this innovation is incremental and it's not cannibalistic. And I think that that's one of the other things that's resulting in some near-term optimism here in the shares, which is encouraging.
And yeah, do you have a price target on Constellation Brands?
Yeah, we have a price target of $275 per share. That's 21 times earnings. If you look at their FY1 multiple, that's really a discount to where it trades on an FY1 basis. And you could also make the argument with Constellation that when you look at the historical valuations on where these multiples shook out on average, either over a 1 year, a 3 year, or a 5 year average, you could make an argument that they're too low, because there had been multiple hangups on the valuation for this company due to some poor capital allocation decisions that they've made in the past that they've since remedied. And so when looking at valuation, like we always look at kind of what the historical precedent was, but in this instance, the historical valuations may be too low because, again, of some of these overhangs that they had on the multiple, which they've since remedied.
All right, let's go to beer here, and obviously you've had the political controversy with Budweiser. Investors have taken it out on the stock quite a bit off its all-time highs here. Is Bud in your area of coverage or not?
So we do not cover Anheuser-Busch.
Okay.
We do cover Molson Coors. However, Molson Coors has been the overwhelming beneficiary of this share shift out of Bud Light here. And so what you've seen, double-digit volume declines from Bud Light, that needs to go somewhere. That's predominantly going to Miller Lite and Coors Light, which are running up double digits. That is well above what the algorithm for those brands would be in a normalized environment. And so TAP is definitely the beneficiary here. If you look at their share price performance there, it's certainly reflected in how strong the shares have been year to date.
And do you have a price target on Molson Coors?
We do. So our price target's actually $60, but our numbers are subject to change. They're going to be reporting earnings on August 1st. Following their 1Q print, which was very strong organically, like that didn't even include any of the share kind of shift out of Bud Light. The second quarter is going to include a full quarter benefit of that. And so we will certainly need to revisit where our revenue numbers are, where our earnings numbers are, kind of given what's shaken out here.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to ask you about Sam and Boston beer. I mean, this
Sure.
thing has just been punished 13 over 1300 to 300. I thought I saw something a positive it in about Barons in a couple weeks ago here. A new maybe like a new hard lemonade or a new cider or something. Is this in your area of coverage? And do you have any comments on Boston beer?
Yeah, sure. So but we do cover Boston beer. We're neutral rated on the stock. It's an interesting stock. During the height of COVID, what you really saw was this hard seltzer phenomenon where everybody was at home. They were um, buying an overwhelming amount of hard seltzer just due to the health and wellness benefits here. And their brand truly was the number two market leading or market position player behind White Claw. And they were a huge beneficiary over the course of 2020, 2021. And then the category completely rolled over. And so when you're the market leader, when a category rolls over, they have not found a bottom for truly hard seltzer. And so over time, would you really? A lot of people think of Sam as a beer company for Boston Lager, but like they're two overwhelming contributors to their top line are going to be Truly, and then even to a greater extent, Twisted Tea. Twisted Tea has been a great
That's what I'm trying to
performing
think of.
brand. I think that's probably what you were alluding to earlier. Twisted Tea is single-handedly carrying this portfolio. The growth has been very strong in Nielsen. They have some new activations that are coming out this year, some new products that are coming out. And so what you've really seen here, and this has been a historically strong double-digit growth story for years, the growth is accelerating for Twisted Tea, just given how much they are, focusing on this brand to try to sustain some of these volume declines, and it's working. And so we like the fact that Twisted Tea has been accelerating, but Truly has not found a bottom. And I think until it does, that's likely going to act as an overhang on the multiple here.
So, what's your current rating on it?
Yeah, we're neutral. We have a $325 price target. Sam is an interesting one because it is US based, and that's arguably the best company to use Nielsen as a proxy for. And so we look at Nielsen monthly, and just based on what we're seeing, extrapolating out 2-year trends, they're due to kind of deliver a 5% volume decline this year, which is squarely in line with their guidance. And so things haven't gotten materially worse. They haven't gotten significantly better. And that's largely attributable to Twisted Tea picking up the slack here.
All right, so I got a real life story here to tell you, and I want to get your input on it. And I'm having a few people over in a few months for a little celebration, and I want to get a keg of beer. Right? Haven't had a good old keg of beer, so I went to my favorite establishment, liquor store, and I went in there and I talked about ordering and the timetable and everything. And what the owner of the store told me, and this was a pretty big store, was that he is not getting fulfilled on half of his shipments that he's even putting in. He says that there's a lot of aluminum and glass shortage. And that, I mean, he was going to, obviously the kegs you have to order a couple weeks out. Do you see anything out there? Because if they, maybe they'd be selling more beer if they actually had the supplies. Is there anything that you see in the supply chain that could be a potential catalyst, like get more stuff out there, or a negative catalyst is they're just not having the materials to pack this up and get it out to people?
Yeah, so there has been supply chain disruption for the better part of 12 to 18 months now. It's definitely gotten better, but when you look at kegs as a percentage of total volume or as a
It's
percentage
low.
of total revenue, it's low single digit for most of the manufacturers. And so I think that if they're going to source aluminum and you gave them the choice, they want their beer going in cans. It's easier to distribute. You could distribute a lot more of it. And so I don't view that as a big deal, but certainly understand the disruption here, and it's a real thing. So it could put a hamper on a party if you're looking to have a lot of people over.
Okay, all right, but no, you're not looking for any long-term
Yeah,
disruptions.
I don't think it's going to prove material, at least over the near term.
Okay, before we let you go, not only do you cover the beverages over there for Wedbush, but you've been covering or starting some coverage in the cannabis sector. And I guess we've been talking about a laggard market, and boy, the cannabis stocks have been laggards. I know you've been looking at a few here. Talk about the whether this is a laggard trade that's going to perhaps get going, if there's still political overhangs, looking for more approvals. Give us some issues to keep an eye on in the cannabis sector.
Yeah, sure. So we cover U.S. cannabis, Green Thumb Industries, Curaleaf, Cresco Labs, and Trulieve. We view those as four of a handful of what we would classify as tier one operators. They have the most revenue, they have the most scale, they're the most geographically diverse here, and so obviously the stocks have been under pressure when you look at what's transpired really toward the end of December 2022 through current day. That's solely due to the fact that the SAFE Act did not pass. And there was increasing optimism leading up to that point. The stocks have looked to have found a floor early this year, and then encouragingly more recently, I guess over the past month or so, they've been better. They've been up, and so we like the fact that we found a floor here. We think that at 1x revenue or 1.2x revenue for all of these what are billion-dollar revenue companies, that the stocks will have better days. And I think that when you look out to the most near-term catalysts, it's always going to revolve around regulatory reform. And in April, a bipartisan group of lawmakers in the House and the Senate reintroduced the Safe Banking Act. And so Sherrod Brown, the Senate Banking Committee, took it up, and they will likely be going to a vote on safe banking in the coming weeks here. And so I suspect that if the Senate Banking Committee passes safe banking and brings it to the broad floor of the Senate, you'll likely see some more share price appreciation, which is encouraging, though. We've been very transparent that regardless of what happens with Senate banking, it's going to be a hurdle to get anything done in this current given the current balance of power as Republicans now control the House. And it still remains unclear whether or not the Senate has 60 votes to pass safe banking in its own right. And so it's certainly going to become more topical really as we get into the end of the summer here and into the fall. But there's a lot that needs to go right to have tangible regulatory reform, because it's such a polarizing issue between the lawmakers.
And what's your at the current current stage in time? What is your top pick in the cannabis sector? Do you have a buy rating on anything yet?
We have buy ratings on all four companies. It's hard not to, just given where the valuation is.
Can you give me the symbols and go slow, because there's like 5 of them? Could you?
Yeah, sure. So GTBIF is going to be our top pick. That's Green Thumb Industries.
Okay, let me write that down. Okay, all right. What else you have for me?
CURLF.
I always meant, once I get beyond 4 symbols, it's like my mind goes Curaleaf. Okay, that's had a little bit of a pop. And then you said Trulieve, right?
Trulieve, TCNNF. I even get confused on the symbol sometimes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, they have picked. I mean, they've shown some signs of life here. I mean, as a laggard trade has picked up. So, all right. Well, we've covered the spirits here on this Wednesdays with Wedbush with Gerald Pascarelli, as I said, covering the beverages and the marijuana sector, cannabis sector. Joining us here on Pre-Market Prep Plus. Thanks you, Gerald. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Wednesday with Wedbush. We can get to some individual issues here. See what's on your radar here on this Wednesday morning. We got a couple minutes left. RAG, you came in late. I think he said 275 price target on CELH, Celsius Holdings, trading up a buck 67. Just short term here for me. This one's had a nice run. I'd just shorter term be looking at 150.43. Just call this whole 151 area. That was the recent high of the move. Broke a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 day losing streak on Monday, but back on the losing streak on Tuesday. So we'll be keeping an eye. I'd be settling my sights. Maybe if we can't clear this 150 over, maybe you'll get a little bit more of a move on the down to the downside. On the downside here, 140 holding up real well as a major support if you're looking to sell on weakness instead of strength. One other number that just kind of coincides with everything else is actually 153.94 is the high of the move, but your high close of the move 150.71, and they kind of ganging up in the 150s. So what else do we have here? Rewind it. I think he said 275 on that. Gold going there for easy. Mike is looking at the gold market, getting a little bit of a boost off this. I think this is an important move here for the gold. We had really been struggling at the 1940 to 1945 area. I hope I've been mentioning that. Now we are up 1720. Market is liking the CPI number, and we're on our way. Next daily high to contend with is 1971.80. What will be important here is if we can, on any kind of retreat, if we can hold this 1940 to let's call it 1942 and a half instead of trying to get too many numbers in there. We had 4 or 5 highs in that area. We'll see if that area can act as support as if they're being former resistance. Okay, folks, we're going to wrap it up. S&P's just ticked up 15 and a quarter, back down 3 handles. A lot of buying momentum going in to the opening bell. We've already exceeded my price target. Yep, we've exceeded my daily price target range on the upside. That was at 12 and a quarter. If you're looking for more beyond the average daily range, I'm harkening back to April of 2022. On April 21st, you had a close at 45.19. That next day, 45.21.75 was your high, and then that started a whole lot of ugliness. So we'll see what the market get back up there today. Joel Elconin signing out for Pre-Market Prep Plus.